For years, Valentina lived surrounded by luxury and by a void that no one could fill. Her body rejected every meal. There were 111 chefs, some of the most famous in the world, flying in from distant countries, bringing rare spices, award-winning recipes, and they all failed. With each attempt, her frustration grew. Flavor turned to bitterness. The dishes became waste. Until one day, the newly hired driver, Marcus, quietly entered the kitchen. No culinary degree, no elaborate recipes, just memories in his eyes. He prepared something simple, and the aroma spread through the house like a forgotten embrace. Valentina tasted it, and for the first time in years, not only did she keep the food down, but she closed her eyes to savor the moment longer. But what was in that dish, and in that man, that no chef in the world had been able to offer?
Valentina was born into a humble family where every achievement was the result of effort and sacrifice. From an early age, she learned to fight for her dreams, determined to never depend on anyone. With vision and courage, she dove into the world of technology, creating startups that grew into billion-dollar empires. Today, as CEO of one of the most innovative companies in the market, she not only achieved financial success, but also ensured the comfort and security of her parents, giving them a life she herself had never imagined having as a child. Valentina lived immersed in commitments, meetings, and decisions that consumed every second of her life. Despite all her wealth, something inside her began to fail. Her body rejected any food, and she felt increasingly weak. Every attempt to eat ended in vomiting or nausea, and nothing seemed to ease her suffering. The luxury and opulence surrounding her could not hide the fragility of her condition. Mansions, expensive cars, and international trips were mere appearances. Inside, she felt trapped in a body that refused to cooperate. Each day, exhaustion grew stronger, and hope seemed to slip away. Desperate for solutions, Valentina decided to seek out the best chefs in the world. One by one, renowned professionals traveled to her mansion, bringing sophisticated recipes and elaborate techniques. Each dish seemed a promise of recovery, a chance to regain control over her life. There were 111 chefs, each with their own specialties, experiences, and international awards. Some tried classic dishes, others creative innovations, but none of them could overcome Valentina's resistance. Her body continued to reject every meal, and the flavors became unbearable. Frustration was constant. Valentina felt powerless in the face of her own body. The confidence she had always had in her ability to control everything began to crumble, giving way to fear and insecurity. Each failed meal reinforced the sense that something was beyond her reach. Doctors recommended rest and stress reduction, but nothing seemed to work. Valentina continued her intense routine, even knowing her body needed a pause. Accumulated fatigue and physical weakness began to create limits she could no longer ignore. Each day she felt more isolated. Her fragile body prevented her from enjoying simple moments. Luxury could not fill the void or restore her energy. Discouragement mixed with anger and a sense of defeat. Even among renowned chefs, no one could help her. Each attempt at a meal ended in frustration, and Valentina began to lose hope. With each new dish, her body mercilessly rejected it, reinforcing the feeling that nothing could work. Loneliness grew more intense. She spent hours staring at untouched plates, unable to eat anything. Her physical and emotional health deteriorated, and Valentina felt increasingly weakened. The chefs grew exhausted, some giving up after days of unsuccessful attempts. Each new visit was marked with expectation and disappointment, but the routine continued. Valentina felt more and more trapped in a condition with no apparent solution. Her work routine remained intense, but the lack of proper nutrition began to affect her decisions and concentration. She experienced dizziness, weakness, and constant discomfort, making each meeting a silent struggle. Valentina spent hours alone, reflecting on her condition. She wondered if she would ever be able to eat normally again. Nothing seemed to work, and hopelessness grew day by day. It was then that Marcus appeared. A newly hired driver began working at the mansion. He was discreet, calm, and observant, with no connection to the world of haute cuisine. Marcus quickly noticed Valentina's situation. He observed the chef's efforts, the tension in the kitchen, and the untouched dishes. Unlike everyone else, he seemed neither impressed nor intimidated. He began paying attention to the mansion's routines. Every gesture of Valentina, every reaction to food, every moment of weakness. His quiet attention was careful, yet constant. Valentina had not noticed him yet. To her, he was just another employee, someone who drove cars and performed basic tasks. There was no apparent reason to think he could make a difference. While the chefs continued to fail, Marcus studied the situation. He was in no rush and did not try to impress. He simply observed and learned, seeking a way to act calmly and carefully. Valentina remained surrounded by doctors, nutritionists, and assistants, yet despite all efforts, eating remained impossible. The entire mansion seemed tense. Every meal was filled with expectation and the fear of failing again. Valentina felt trapped in an endless cycle. Then came the moment of change. Marcus, silent and attentive, approached the kitchen, ready to act in a way no one had tried before. He had no experience as a renowned chef, but he had care, attention, and patience. He observed the environment, studied Valentina's reactions, and prepared to do something different. Marcus's presence brought something new to the mansion. There was a quiet anticipation, even though Valentina was not yet aware of it. She remained weak and debilitated, but a change was approaching, something that could finally break years of food rejection. And so, the exhausting and failing routine was about to reach an unexpected turning point. Marcus was ready to take action, without Valentina having any idea that her life could change completely.
Valentina watched Marcus prepare the meal, unable to understand how this simple man could achieve what 111 renowned chefs had not. He stirred the ingredients with care, each movement calm and confident. The aroma began to fill the kitchen, unlike anything she had ever experienced. A sweet, familiar scent that stirred forgotten memories. When Marcus placed the plate in front of her, Valentina hesitated. Every meal had been a defeat, and her body resisted. But something in the simple presentation and his careful approach made her take a deep breath. She realized there was no rush, no pressure, only quiet attention. The first scent that reached her nose brought a strange sensation, a mix of comfort and surprise, as if she were traveling back in time. Sweet and savory notes, delicate and balanced spices, seemed to speak directly to her memory. As she took the first bite, Valentina froze. The flavor was at once new and familiar, awakening something she had almost forgotten existed. It was as if each ingredient told a story, and her body recognized that story without her having to think. The texture was perfect, smooth yet substantial, embracing her palate in a comforting way. The taste caused no nausea or disgust, only pleasure. Each bite brought unexpected warmth, filling the emptiness she had felt for months. The aroma lingered in the air, gentle and enveloping, reminding her of the kitchen from her childhood. A scent that evoked memories of safety and care from times she could no longer consciously recall. It was as if she had found something lost long ago. Valentina felt a wave of emotions pass through her body. Her weakness seemed to ease, her heart beat more slowly, and her mind, once tense, calmed. For the first time in a long while, she felt genuine pleasure in eating. Each bite brought new discoveries. Her body reacted naturally, accepting the food without resistance. The contrast with the sophisticated dishes of the chefs was striking. No complicated techniques, no extravagant presentations. Just simple ingredients combined with care and attention, creating something extraordinary for Valentina. She closed her eyes, letting the aroma and flavor fill her senses. A sense of warmth and safety spread through her body. Each piece seemed to restore energy, filling her with long-forgotten vitality. The sweet and savory taste reminded her of something familiar, a hidden memory. Valentina couldn't quite identify its source, but her body reacted as if recognizing the food as part of herself. Tears came involuntarily. For the first time in a long time, eating was no longer torment. It was pleasure, safety, and comfort, an experience she had never imagined feeling again. She began to eat faster, yet without hurry. Each bite was savored, as if carrying energy and affection. Her body finally responded positively, regaining strength and vitality. She watched Marcus closely. There was something about him that conveyed genuine care, patience, and presence. It wasn't just food. It was an act of humanity that touched Valentina deeply. She smiled for the first time in months. An invisible bond formed between Valentina and Marcus, even though she didn't understand how or why. When she finished the plate, she realized she was smiling. A mixture of surprise, joy, and gratitude filled her chest. She finally felt nourished both in body and soul. The first step toward recovery had been taken. Marcus's food was more than nourishment. It was memory, care, and connection. For the first time in a long while, Valentina felt alive and whole.
Valentina watched Marcus clean the plate, still savoring the last bite. She looked at him with surprise and curiosity. There was something about the calm way he cooked that intrigued her. A silence hung between them, heavy and full of meaning. Marcus took a deep breath, seeming to gather courage to speak. His eyes avoided hers for a few seconds, but finally met her gaze. "Valentina, there's something I need to tell you," he began, hesitant. She raised her eyebrows, unsure of what to expect. There was more than shyness in his voice. There was a profound seriousness. The atmosphere in the kitchen shifted, becoming dense and charged with expectation. "The recipe," Marcus continued, breathing slowly, "isn't just mine. It's the same one my mother made. The same one she used to prepare for me when I was a child." Valentina frowned, confused. "Your mother?" she repeated, trying to understand. "What does that have to do with me?" Marcus swallowed hard, as if the next words were painful to speak. "I believe that you are my sister," he said, in a low voice, almost a whisper. The world seemed to stop for a moment for Valentina. She leaned back in her chair, a chill running down her spine. She had never imagined anything like this. I don't understand," she stammered, her heart racing. "Your sister?" Marcus tilted his head, serious. "I know it's a lot to take in at once, but something tells me you were raised by another family, that your story is different from what you've been told." Valentina felt a crushing weight in her chest. Until then, everything she knew about her life seemed solid, but suddenly it felt fragile, ready to crumble. "So, you're telling me I was adopted?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I believe so," Marcus replied, avoiding her gaze. "And the food, it's the same one our mother made for us when we were children." She leaned back, processing each word slowly. A mixture of shock, disbelief, and confusion swept through her body. "But how is this possible?" she murmured, almost inaudibly. "Why did nobody tell me?" Marcus took a deep breath and began to explain. "Your adoptive parents, they took you from our biological mother. I grew up with her, you didn't. I only discovered clues as an adult.
I had vague memories of a younger sister, but no certainty. My mother passed away a few years ago and never revealed if I really had a sister, but she never denied it either. I started investigating and found evidence that it could be you. That's why I came to work here and got close." Valentina felt a lump in her throat. Every piece of the life she knew now seemed questionable. Her childhood, her luxury, her comfort, it all felt like an illusion. "This can't be true," she said, shaking her head. "I grew up believing they were my parents." Marcus held her hand for a moment, shy but firm. "I know, but when I saw you taste the food, something inside me clicked. You recognized the flavor, the seasoning, and I realized you are my sister." The air in the kitchen grew heavy. Valentina didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She felt betrayed, yet curious. A whirlwind of emotions hit her all at once. "And so, my whole life," she began, her voice breaking, "is a lie?" Marcus lowered his eyes. "Not a lie, just the wrong choices of the adults around us." She stood slowly, needing space. She walked through the kitchen, absorbing the gravity of the revelation. Everything seemed surreal, almost impossible. "I always thought my life was perfect, and now you're telling me I was stolen." "It wasn't your fault, nor mine, but the truth had to come out." She paused, looking at him with teary eyes. "So, the food," she began, hesitantly, "why was I able to eat your recipe?" Marcus smiled faintly, with a touch of sadness. "Because our mother taught it. It's the same taste from our childhood. That's why your body reacted differently." Valentina sat down again, trying to process everything. Each detail seemed like a piece of an old puzzle, now finally visible. I don't know if I can handle this," she said, her voice quivering. "My whole life, my entire story." "You're not alone," Marcus said. "I'm here. I've always been here, even without knowing it." She took a deep breath, feeling torn between shock and relief. Something inside her was beginning to reconnect, despite the pain of the truth. "So, you grew up with our mother?" she asked, needing to understand the details. "Yes," Marcus replied. "I grew up with her recipes, her teachings, and now I found you." Valentina closed her eyes, letting silent tears fall. The revelation was devastating, but at the same time, something inside her calmed. "I need time to process all this," she said, her voice firm but emotional. "My life will never be the same." Marcus nodded, understanding the impact. "I know, but I want you to know I'm not here just to reveal the truth. I'm here to walk beside you." She took a deep breath, trying to organize her thoughts. Frustration, shock, and pain mingled, but there was a hint of hope in this unexpected reunion. "I never imagined my life had a secret like this, but maybe finally I'm beginning to understand who I really am." Silence returned to the kitchen, now heavy with emotion and possibility. Valentina and Marcus looked at each other, connected not by romantic love, but by blood ties that were finally revealed. And so, the truth about her origins began to fall into place, painful though it was. A dark secret, a stolen adoption, but also the beginning of an unexpected bond between siblings separated by fate.
Valentina left the kitchen with a heavy heart. Each step seemed burdened with questions that demanded answers. Marcus's revelation still echoed in her mind. Her entire life seemed to have been built on a lie. She decided she could no longer postpone the truth. She needed to discover who her biological parents really were and understand what had happened. Each thought made her more restless and anxious. By investigating old documents and forgotten records, she began to piece together a puzzle that had once seemed impossible. Each new piece of information increased her shock and disbelief. She finally discovered that the parents who had legally raised her had taken her away from her biological mother, a silent crime disguised as adoption that would forever change her perception of family.
Valentina felt a deep pain pierce her chest. Fortune, luxury, and accomplishments now seemed tainted by a dark past. Everything she had built felt entangled in injustice. She remembered the childhood she had imagined as perfect, the affectionate gestures of those who raised her. But now she knew those gestures had been tinged with falseness and manipulation. The initial shock gave way to contained anger. How could someone build their life on the pain and suffering of another? Every memory of her childhood now felt distorted. Valentina took a deep breath, trying to find balance. Between hatred and the desire for justice, there was also the need to free herself emotionally. She could not let anger consume her life. She sought out Marcus to share the discovery. The siblings sat side by side, trying to process the painful truth together. A blood bond that life had tried to hide now became a source of strength. "They stole you too," Valentina said, looking at Marcus with teary eyes. "It's unfair and unbelievable." Marcus nodded silently. He knew his own memories of their biological mother carried pain, but now he shared with Valentina the feeling of betrayal. Valentina decided she needed to confront her adoptive parents. She needed to understand how those who raised her could commit such deception. When she faced them, Valentina stared at them, trying to control the whirlwind of emotions she felt. Between anger and relief, she had to choose how to react. "You took me away from who I really was and built your lives on the suffering of others." Her adoptive parents looked at her, speechless, perhaps expecting forgiveness or compassion. But Valentina knew this was not the moment to soften the truth. "I needed to know the truth, and now I do. You could not have taken me from my biological mother or from my brother Marcus." As she spoke, she felt torn between the desire for revenge and the need for emotional freedom. Each word was an internal battle. Hatred tried to dominate her, but the need to move forward and heal her own wounds was stronger. She took a deep breath and held her posture firm. "I don't want to destroy anyone, but I also cannot ignore what you did. I need to find my own path." Her adoptive parents remained silent, acknowledging the weight of their actions without words. The fortune that had sustained them before was no longer a shield. Valentina felt a mixture of triumph and sadness. The world had rebalanced, yet the injustice of the past still echoed in her memory. She reflected on her own life, the years of work, the challenges, the accomplishments. None of it diminished the pain of betrayal, but it strengthened her determination to move forward. Marcus held her hand, offering silent support. Words alone could not heal the wounds, but there was the strength of the newly discovered bond. Valentina realized she could choose how to react. The past was painful, but she did not need to be defined by it. "I will rebuild my life," she finally said, looking at the parents who had deceived her, not with anger, but with freedom and truth. They only nodded, aware that they had lost not only privileges, but also control over the life they thought they owned. Gradually, Valentina felt a sense of lightness. She did not need revenge, but inner justice and emotional freedom. She took a deep breath, gazing at the horizon. The pain was intense, but there was room for reconstruction, for choices that belonged only to her. Valentina realized that life had taken an unexpected turn. The injustice had been revealed, and now she had the power to decide her path. With Marcus by her side, she felt she could face any challenge. Her true family had finally been revealed, bringing hope and strength. She walked away from her adoptive parents, not with resentment, but with determination. The past could no longer control her. The pain remained, but so did clarity. Her life would now be guided by truth, real connections, and conscious choices. Valentina took a deep breath, ready to transform pain into strength. The emotional suspense continued, but she was prepared to move forward. The dark past had been unveiled, and now emotional freedom became the path toward the future. Valentina woke that morning with a different kind of relief. The weight of lies and discoveries finally seemed to lessen. The pain was still there, but now it came accompanied by clarity and purpose. She took a deep breath, feeling energy return to her body. For the first time in months, she felt true hunger, but also a hunger for life and change. Marcus entered the kitchen, carrying the breakfast he had prepared with care. The familiar aroma filled the room, bringing comforting memories. Valentina smiled, feeling genuinely connected to the brother she had only recently met. It was a bond made of blood, truth, and shared experiences. "I'm ready to move forward," she said firmly. "No hate, no resentment, just courage and clarity." Marcus nodded, his eyes shining with emotion. "Let's turn all of this into something good, for us and for our mother's memory." Valentina began thinking about how she could support Marcus. Her fortune, which had once sustained empty luxuries, could now create something meaningful. "You've always dreamed of opening your own restaurant," she said. "I want to make it real." He looked at her, surprised and emotional. "Would you do that for me?" he asked, almost in disbelief. "Yes," she replied. "Let's turn pain into purpose. Let's honor our mother and everything she taught us." Together they began to plan. Marcus chose the menu, preserving his mother's recipes, which now carried emotional and historical value. Valentina handled logistics, the space, and finances, always respecting her brother's creative vision. Each step was an act of trust and connection. The restaurant opened with a simple ceremony, yet full of meaning. Close friends, family, and Valentina were present, witnessing the beginning of a dream. The aroma of old recipes spread through the space, evoking memories of childhood and family history. Each dish told a story of love and resilience. Customers were enchanted by the authentic flavors, unaware of the story behind each meal. But for Valentina and Marcus, every bite held deep significance. Success came not only from taste, but from the care and authenticity Marcus poured into every detail. He became a respected and admired chef. Valentina watched with pride, feeling rewarded for transforming pain into something positive. The dark past could no longer control her life. They worked side by side, but also learned to laugh and enjoy each other's company. Their sibling relationship flourished, full of affection and closeness. Valentina's health visibly improved. Eating again became pleasurable, and her body regained strength and vitality. The restaurant became a gathering place, not just for food, but for stories and memories. Each customer could feel the passion and care in each dish served. Valentina reflected on the journey that had brought her there. Losses, discoveries, and reconciliations had shaped who she had become. She smiled, realizing that the pain had been necessary for transformation. Every tear and emotional shock had led to a meaningful new beginning. Marcus, by her side, looked at her with gratitude. "Without you, none of this would have been possible," he said, moved. She squeezed his hand, feeling part of something greater than money or power. It was love, family, and purpose. The restaurant continued to grow, and Marcus's reputation spread. But they remained focused on what truly mattered: connection and family legacy. Valentina found peace in small things: cooking, tasting the dishes, laughing with Marcus, and feeling whole again. Each day was a quiet celebration of victory over the dark past. She had rebuilt not only her life, but also her soul. The cycle of lies was broken, and Valentina felt free to love, live, and create, without fear. She looked toward the horizon, feeling that she finally belonged to her own story. Happiness was no longer a luxury, but a reality built on truth. Her bond with Marcus strengthened with every dish, every conversation, every shared memory. They were siblings, allies, and partners in life and dreams. Valentina felt deep gratitude for having overcome the past, embraced the truth, and found a new purpose. Then she smiled at the invisible camera, as if speaking directly to those who had followed her journey.
If this story touched you, follow our channel to experience more emotional and transformative journeys like this.